Hi guys, it's Natalie Elphinstone here with you today, and I am going to show you how to make some cards like this using this really fabulously cute Christmas bauble die. It's called Festive Bird. And it's of course by Sizzix, and it's one of the Thinlits. So what you get in this packet is you get 3 pieces. You get the bird bauble bit, as well as the sort of the top and the little attachment part that all goes together to create this look that looks like it's a ornament ready to hang up on the Christmas tree. Now I've turned these into some cards, and I think you can just see that I've made these into sort of 3D shaker cards with some fun sequins inside there, and I'll show you how quick and easy it is to make these. And I've got a pink version and a blue version, so today we're going to make the yellow version just to complete the set. And I've gone ahead and I've preemptively cut a few little bits and pieces here. I've got the card, which is just a 4x4 white cardstock. I've got another piece of plain card, which is just slightly smaller than the 4x4, and I've got a piece of pattern paper that's also even just slightly smaller than that again. Now I have also just cut out a square. Can you just see that? I collect like the plastic packaging, like this is sort of firmer, sturdier type of plastic packaging, and sometimes I cut out the squares of it rather than throwing it away, because it's just perfect for things like shaker cards when you need a clear panel behind something. So what we're going to do, the first step is going to be cutting out the bird, the bauble, and it's going to go right in the middle of this circle. And it doesn't really matter what orientation, like if you put it side on or the other side or whatever at the moment, because of course it's a perfect circle. You can cut it any which way, and I'm just placing it in my Big Shot machine. I'm just going to whiz this through real quick. And remember, it's quite normal for the Big Shot to make those sort of cracking sounds as those plastic plates go through. And so now we're left, of course, with this square with its cut out circle and this part. Now, of course, because this is quite an intricate sort of die, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to pull all these bits and pieces out without being worried that you're going to rip it. But let me show you a couple of tricks. One thing you can get is these accessories. So this is like the foam mat and this roller thing, and you just roll it over the top, and these sort of wire brushes stick in there. And so you can see how that's just popped it out for me. And there's still a few bits and pieces left in there, so I can just go over the top like this. And that gets, again, the majority of them out. And then you'll find that there's only a couple still left in there, so that's when I find it easier now to go over to my sort of paper piecer poking tool. That's what I call it. I'm sure it's got an official name. I call it the poking tool. And there we go. So now it is perfectly cut out, and of course you can see that even though that's sort of delicate and fine cutting, that none of those pieces have ripped, and I've cut out all of the little inside bits perfectly well without any problems. So the next step is going to be, with this cutout square, I'm going to glue the back panel onto it, because that's just going to take a little moment to dry. So I use a strong glue that dries quickly, so I use my glossy accents for this quite a bit for this kind of purpose. And I'm just going to go around all the edges and place my plastic sheet over the back here, and just sort of set that aside to dry for the moment, and that won't take too long. In the meantime, what will happen is that we need to do some layering. So here's back to my card, and the pattern paper goes on the background as the first layer. So again, I can just glue this on, right in the center. The next layer that will happen after that is that this will go on, but it needs to be popping off the card a little bit. It needs that 3D element so that it can fit the sequins in behind it. So I'm going to use some foam tape and stick the foam tape all around the edges here. So because I haven't left a huge gap, I need some really thin strips of this foam tape. So this is double-sided foam tape. And although this is not completely dry, I am sticking this on. And that's okay because I'm not going to fiddle around with it too much at the moment. So I'm still aware that it's going to need some extra time to dry before we manipulate it too much. And I find that when you're going around the bendy corners, if you take off both sides of the foam sticky, then it will actually bend around really easily. And so that way I can get around the edges of this circle. And I've even got a little bit left over there. Stick that one down here. One extra little bit. So that's a really good trick that I discovered for going around corners. Now you want to make sure that you don't leave any gaps in this foam tape. You do want it to go pretty much all the way around, and that's because of course when we pop the sequins in here, you don't want those sequins to escape. But it doesn't need to be pretty, it doesn't need to be fancy, so even though that's a little haphazard, that's okay. And then whilst I'm going with the foam tape, I also want to stick some on the back of this bird. So I'm going to cut out, you know, that sort of semicircle for the top part. And so this gives it a nice wide area to stick on. And that other little bit for the bird down here as well. Alright, now we are ready to add our sequins, which are going to be the shaker element. So I've got a bit of a mixture of colours here that will kind of match this yellow and slightly pink pattern paper. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my selection of sequins and just spread them out here in the middle of the card. And just using a few different colours I think just makes it a little bit fun. And I want them to be fairly, I don't want them sort of piled up because then they won't move around, so I'm just keeping them fairly flat here, but adding quite a few because I like a sort of a full shaker card. So they go in there. And now I'm ready to just peel off the remainder of the backs of these foam tapes and stick that over the top, making sure it's nice and centered in my card. And there's the shaker part. So that's really fun, just like that. And then, of course, we're gonna just take it to the next level by adding another new layer, and this is the bauble. And I like to place this on the diagonal. So now I'm sticking that down there. And to finish off, we've got these extra little bits. So I cut out the top hanging bit, I guess, with some silver glitter paper, and I'll prop that up with some little more bit of foam tape. And then for the joining bit, so I just want that in the corner there, I cut out sort of the joining bit with the same yellow pattern paper that I've got in the background here, and that just gives it a nice continuity, like it's the same color, right? So makes it look like it's a matching bauble. So that's going to stick there. Now to just take it to the next level after that is that you can see on these cards that I add some stamping across here, just this little sentiment that says Happy Holidays, and it's fairly subtle, like I've done that in grey ink. So I can do the same here. Now ideally I would have done that before I stuck it down, but let's be honest, I forgot to do that step. So we can do it now because I put that sturdy sort of foam tape all on the back. It's still going to give us a fairly rigid base to stamp on. And I'm just going to get a couple of pieces of scrap paper just to put behind here. Ignore that. It really is scrap paper. And take my grey ink and my sentiment and ink it all up. And I'm just going to line this up over here. And now you can see why I added the scrap paper behind, because I didn't want to get it over the sides. And then the very last thing that I did was I've stamped the same stamp onto another scrap piece of paper and cut out just the little sentiment, and that is going to once again just be popped up on a little layer of foam tape, which means that this card is like 1, 2, 3 layers high, so it's nice and dimensional. And some string right through the top because it is supposed to be a hanging ornament. So once again, just to stick with the color scheme, I've taken some yellow. This is just plain old embroidery floss. You can use ribbon or baker's twine or something fancy like that, but just because, as I said, I was trying to match the colors, I've gone with this yellow embroidery floss, and I will tie that up neater and proper and make it all very pretty, but certainly you get the idea of how that's going to work. And that is it. Now I've got this fabulous set of 3 Christmas cards. It's only October, so I'm getting in early, but I think sometimes that's what you need to do. And this is super fun and super easy to get a really detailed and fun effect. And it's all thanks to this new die by Sizzix called Festive Bird. So I hope you've been inspired today, and I'd love to see your cards if you make something similar. Thanks guys, see you later.